Oscar, hay que decir que ya está en tierra cubana. El centro penetró por un lugar próximo a la ciudad de Baracoa esta tarde alrededor de las 6.
Estamos también protegiendo aquellos bienes materiales que tiene la población y también los bienes materiales de la economía para que no se nos eche a perder en ningún momento los bienes materiales de la economía.
Cuba plunged into a countrywide blackout after the collapse of one of its major power plants Friday. By evening, officials said a trickle of power to its grid was restored. Grid operator UNE said it hoped to restart at least 5 of its oil-fired generation plants overnight, so it can gradually restore power to broader areas of the country. The vast majority of the country's 10 million residents were still in the dark on Friday night. Scattered pockets of the capital, Havana, including some of the city's major hospitals, saw lights flicker back on shortly after dark. Residents lit candles and fires and got through their Friday evening. A local, Rafael Pedro Gomez, says small children, the elderly and the sick were suffering the most from the outage. And an employee of a hostel, Claudia Amanda Betancourt, says without electricity, guests in the room don't have air conditioning. Virtually all businesses in Havana ground to a halt on Friday. Earlier, the government was forced to close schools. Most state workers were sent home in a last-ditch effort to keep the lights on after weeks of severe power outages. Cuba's President Miguel Diaz-Canel on TV told people to remain united and urged caution to residents from misinformation on social media. The blackout comes as residents are also suffering from shortages of food, fuel, water and medicine. Officials blamed the outage on deteriorating infrastructure, fuel shortages and rising demand. They also said strong winds from Hurricane Milton last week hampered fuel deliveries to power plants. Cuba has long blamed U.S. Cold War-era embargo and sanctions under former President Donald Trump for difficulties in acquiring fuel and spare parts to operate its oil-fired plants. The country's largest oil supplier, Venezuela, has also reduced shipments in the first 9 months of the year, while Russia and Mexico have also greatly reduced fuel shipments to the island.
Acostumbrados a pasar toda la vida porque no podemos hacer otra cosa. Tenemos que acostumbrarnos a todas estas cosas. Y no podemos estar comentando mucho porque no queremos problemas con la justicia. Tú sabes que ahora aquí no se puede estar hablando mucho.
Posibilidad que hay siempre se resuelve. En el país hay situaciones duras y todo se saca todo duro, pero dentro de las posibilidades todo se va a resolver. Es lo que hay.
Ya en estos momentos el barco de María ya entró y está descargando combustible desde ahí por la noche. También tenemos un barco aquí en La Habana que no había podido entrar por condiciones meteorológicas, que nos va a garantizar el combustible de las centrales flotantes, de las dos centrales flotantes de aquí de La Habana, la de 200 megawatts y la de 56 megawatts. Lo que queda de noche y la madrugada es clave para poder incrementar sobre todo la capacidad de generación en las centrales de la generación base del sistema. Te repito, estamos arrancando 3 unidades. Y es clave que nosotros podamos tener en servicio estas 3 unidades. Por eso lo que resta de noche y la madrugada son decisivas para poder incrementar la capacidad de generación del sistema, incrementar la cobertura de electricidad y también la posibilidad de interconexión de esos microsistemas que tenemos en el país en estos momentos.
People bang pots and pans in the Cuban capital of Havana on Saturday night. Elsewhere, another small protest over a deepening power crisis. People block a street with trash. Cuba's electrical grid collapsed again on Sunday, leaving millions of people without electricity. It marked the 4th such failure in 48 hours. People mulled over what to do as they lined up for bread.
Mal, muy mal, porque sin corriente no tenemos nada.
It's bad, very bad, because without electricity, we have nothing, this woman said. The communist-run government canceled school through Wednesday, a near unprecedented move for Cuba. It pointed to both the energy crisis and Hurricane Oscar, which bore down on the island on Sunday and could make the situation even more complicated. In her old Havana home, Annabelle Gonzalez says she's been without power for 3 days, and her food supply is dwindling.
Tengo el teléfono apagado, el refrigerador.
My cell phone is dead, and look at my refrigerator.
Todo echado a perder.
The little that I had is all gone to waste, she said. Energy and Mines Minister Vicente de la Oleve told reporters that he expected the grid to be fully functional by Monday or Tuesday, but warned residents not to expect dramatic improvements. The government has blamed weeks of worsening blackouts on deteriorating infrastructure, fuel shortages, and rising demand, as well as the U.S. trade embargo and sanctions, which it says hamper efforts to get fuel and parts to run the plants. The U.S. denies a role. The island does not produce much crude oil, and foreign countries have cut exports.